going to just look at some things that are happening in the world, and some of the things that I have on here, actually, as I was riding and driving, I wasn't riding, I was driving here yesterday. I was listening to different radio stations as I went along, and it was interesting listening because they added to some of the stuff. If I could just remember what I heard yesterday, it would really be good. Let's take a look at the economy, because it was on the news yesterday quite a bit. They said that they're really proud of the economy right now. In fact, I was listening to Georgia, the station out of Atlanta, and they was talking about, well, the great things that happen in Georgia. The economy is good in Georgia. And if you just seen the statistics that they just released, is either yesterday or today, they're talking about the great numbers, and the economy is on the upswing. Let's take a little closer look at that, though, and see where we really are. Just look at this, the giant retailers like Walmart, Nordstrom, Macy's, Staples, Whole Foods, and many others may soon face extinction. The following are the 13 major retailers that are closing down stores. Sears lost $580 million in the fourth quarter of 2015 alone. And they're scheduled to close at least 50 more unprofitable stores by the end of this year. Sports Authority. They was on this one quite a bit yesterday. The file for bankruptcy. News reports indicate that they have around 200 stores that may close. And they're hoping that somebody will come in and buy them out to keep it alive. For a decade, Kohl's, right over here, has been growing aggressively. Now it plans to shutter 18 stores in 2016. Target has just finished closing 13 stores in the United States. That's over there. You're lucky. We can point to them right here. They're at Best Buy over there too. Closed 30 stores last year, and it says that more stores closing are likely in the months to come. Office Depot plans to close a total of 400 stores by the end of 2016. Walmart is closing 269 stores, including 154 inside the United States. And I'll just stop here for a second, and I want and talk a little bit. The push to raise the minimum wage is one of the factors, particularly in the Walmart situation. In one of the counties in California where they raised the minimum wage, they closed that store and shoving everybody to a store outside of that county where they don't have to pay that higher minimum wage. Kmart is closing down more than 24 stores over the next several months. JCPenney will be permanently shuttering down 47 more stores right after they gave me a credit card too. After closing a total of 40 stores in 2015. Macy's has decided that it needs to shutter 36 stores and lay off approximately 2,500 employees. The Gap is in the process of closing 175 stores in North America. We got another, you can see the rest of these that are closing, and on the numbers. Does that sound like an economy that's booming? Here's some of the problems. One of the things is, like these stores closing should be particularly cruel for small towns. We had a chance for a Walmart to come in close to our little town, and they was going to come in. And I said, I hated to see it because it was going to close down all the mom and pop stores there, the people that put their life into making. But you know, they had a group of people who thought this was going to be wonderful, and they actually acquired the land. But there was some difficulty and some legalities that occurred, and so they couldn't come in. But look what happened here in North Carolina. The Town and Country Grocery in Oriental, North Carolina, a local fixture for 44 years, closed its doors in October after a Walmart store opened for business. Now, 3 months later, and less than 2 years after Walmart arrived, the retail giant is pulling up stakes, leaving the community with no grocery store and no pharmacy.
Happened in 3 places over where we live.
Yeah. It's happened in Damascus, north of here.
Yeah. So, and that's the trouble. And who's going to come in and try to pick up on that? You know, these mom and pop stores, of course, have just been disappearing all the time, while Walmart's tried to grow. But now Walmart has found competition, And that's the reason they're closing their stuff. There's the Dollar Generals, Family Dollars, and Fred's. All those have been undercutting Walmart, and they're doing exactly what Walmart started out doing. Walmart started in the small towns and built to the cities. And then they started forgetting the small towns, and so that now these other stores, Family Dollar, Dollar General, and Fred's, are going back into the small towns, and there's where the competition has. So why should I drive to a Walmart when I can drive right here and get what I want? And lots of times the prices are very competitive, and not less what Walmart has even. Because now Walmart has found that they got more overhead that they have to take care of. On Thursday, we got the latest evidence that the global economic wheels are falling off. According to a new data from the Netherlands Bureau of Economic Policy Analysis, World Trade Monitor, global trade defined as value of goods that cross international lines. Anyway, they're falling. You can't see that last line. They're falling. We're living in a false economy, folks. And we're just holding our breath, trying to get as far along in this as we can. It doesn't take anything for this whole thing to collapse worldwide. That's why they've been trying to keep Greece up at a terrible expense, to keep Greece going. And of course, Greece is taking advantage of it too, because they know if they fall, the rest of Europe will fall. We're also watch the markets, of course, in China. And when they're having trouble, and they're having economic trouble, China's having lots of trouble economically right now, and we're watching them. And part of China's problem, of course, is bad investments. They invested in the United States, and we're a pretty bad investment right now. And so we're seeing that. We're seeing with the upheaval that's going on in Europe right now. We're going to talk about that probably a little bit later here. Among the immigration that is coming in from the war and stuff, and it's directly affecting the economy of Europe. Of course, Great Britain toying with the idea of pulling out of the European, but not we used to call common market. It's what is it? Yeah, European Union. That's right. And if they do, they'll have repercussions that happen to them financially. They may lose some of their territory also, because they have some people who were upset before with them. And so there's all sorts of things that could happen with that. Here in the United States, how long? I don't care if you elect Donald Trump as your president, his $1 billion is only going to pay interest for about 10 minutes, And we're in trouble. And so when something, there was a panic a few months back when we had some weekends in there where we was waiting to see what was going to happen from Friday to Monday, and hoping the economy was going to, and stock market was going to read better for us. And it didn't pick up right away, but it picked up a little bit. Everybody started getting a little more comfortable again, and so we're living that lifestyle and trying to block out the economy. One of these days, it's going to fall out completely. And there's going to be chaos. Chaos everywhere. People trying to learn how to live again off the land and take care of themselves, support themselves, grow their own things or barter or whatever it is, because money is going to be worthless at this point. And we're going to see some real turmoil, I'm afraid. This year is a bad year already. Here's when we look at the world trade price per unit values. Look where we're going here. We're not doing very good. Here's the problem. When they talk about all the jobs they got, here's where the jobs are. During the last several years, good-paying middle-class jobs have been getting replaced by low-paying service jobs. At this point, 51% of all American workers make less than $30,000 a year. And there is no way that you can support a middle-class family with children on $30,000 a year. So what happens? They have to be supplemented, which means those who are making more than $30,000 a year contributed to help those make less, and they haven't any money either, you know. We have an economy that's in the process of failing. We can see it in the explosion of subprime auto loans that are going bad. We can see it in the hundreds of retail stores that are shutting down, and we can see it in tens of thousands of good paying jobs that are being lost. When we get past tax season, you're going to see a real sale on cars and automobiles. Right now, they're hoping to get your tax rebate, and so they're selling and they're inflated. But when we get past tax season and you already spent your money and your tax rebate on whatever it is you're going to spend it on, you're going to see probably a great sale on automobiles because they got to move this stuff, or else they're going to lose, the workers and stuff. I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. See thou hurt not the oil and the wine. Penny, or in this particular case, in this range, it was talking about a day's wages. A day's wages for a loaf of bread. I mean, that's what the book says is the real possibility that we're looking at here with the economy the way it is. And I would not, we just hope that we can hold on for as long as we can, but somewhere along the way it's got to collapse. And the whole world's going to go bankrupt. And I'm going to have to start all over. Tektites. You know what those are? Huh? These are the residue of what happens from a when a meteorite happens on Earth. From when a meteor falls on a meteorite's right? I have to get this right. A meteorite, here comes the Earth. They throw off this crystallization that comes, and they have found recently in some diggings a wide range indicating that at one point the Earth was pelted with a shower of them, and almost at a simultaneous time of period. And they found these things, and these are the clues for all that. You know that, let's see, this fireball fell into the Atlantic Ocean just about, a month ago now? It was a huge meteorite. What's interesting about this is we only know about it after the fact. This isn't the real picture of it. Because nobody took pictures, because nobody knew it was happening until after it happened, and they got all the information came back. Because it fell right off the South America into the ocean. Question is, with all the stuff that we got out there, the telescopes, the tracking instruments, everything out there, why is it we get these surprises like this? Well, that's not the end of it. Even when we know this is where it fell, right here in the South Atlantic. Data released by NASA shows that the meteor released an energy equivalent to 12,000 or 13,000 tons, that's easy for, of TNT, and is moving over 15.5 kilometers per second, or 9.6 miles per second. It had a diameter about 7 meters, 23 feet, calculated based on its kinetic energy. That's the way they found out about it. Well, here's something that's interesting too. We got an asteroid. It's headed for Earth. Going to be about Tuesday. So get your catcher's glove on and be ready to, catcher's mitt and get ready to catch it. Actually, the trouble is, they do know it's coming, but they don't know how close to the Earth it's going to come. And they have calculated all sorts of different distances that it may occur. And here's why it made it difficult for them to do some of this, is because it is coming out of the sun toward us. And they're having a hard time tracking it and seeing it. But it could come within 19,000 miles of the Earth, and that's a pretty good. That's one of the closest distance that they think it could be. That's pretty close. We also had not long ago. They probably you never heard this. We had a pretty good sized meteor pass between the Earth and the Moon, and they didn't know about it until it showed up, and here it was. So we got some things happening in the sky that we need to look at. It says the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third parts of the water and upon the fountains of the water. And possibilities again of things happening, and those are not. There's nothing there. It's out of our control. It's not like the Earth can bob and weave out there. We are what we are. And eventually something is the timing's going to be just right. And it's going to hit some major territory, and we're going to have some trouble. Children sacrificed to bring luck in Uganda elections. They've, these elections, when there's this election year, every time there's an election year, they actually sacrifice kids to bring them good luck. And they find in these mutilated bodies of children around by those by the adults and sacrifice them, these kids, for elections. And then we're finding in Africa that if you're albino African, or that they want you because you got a great market value for their medicinal stuff. And so they will kill you for your bones, your flesh, whatever, and pass that along. Very interesting. Why stuff killing off people like that. Good thing, as horrible as it is, it happens in another place, didn't it? Well, here's an Indian man who he killed 14 members of his family with a knife near Mumbai. We have stories all the time. Again, that's in India. Here's ISIS father. He kissed his son goodbye, sent him off with a bomb. So here's your bomb. Let me kiss you goodbye and get out there and kill somebody. But again, all that stuff's happened someplace else. It's bad, it's horrible, but it's happening someplace else. But children are on the battlefield in a lot of places now. They're in camps. So again, but it's someplace else. How about this? I'm afraid we kill people too, don't we? With consistency, beautiful and undeviating human life, from its commencements to its close is protected by common law. In the contemplations of law, life begins when the infant is first able to stir in the womb. By the law, that life is protected. James Wilson, that's about 200 years old. Abortions have gone down. Here's the statistics, though. Since 1973 to 2013, I don't have anything since, but 56,405,766. I was listening, interesting enough, that one of the stations that I was listening to was NPR on the way here, and on NPR, they actually had the lady call in who had an abortion and talked about how horrible her abortion went, and how just everything she talked about. I had a lady who came to me one night after church. I announced what I was going to preach on the next week, and it had to do with the sanctity of human life. And she came to me and she said, "I won't be here next week." And she said, "I had an abortion. I feel bad about it. I was pressured into it, but I can't come and listen to what you had to say." And so we talked a while. She did show up, and we talked about it. But that's the parts that they don't talk about. But I thought it was interesting that it was on that NPR that she called in and talked about it, because they obviously didn't screen her well enough for it to be on that radio station. And here's what they say: why do women have abortions? 74% say having a baby would interfere with work, school, or other responsibilities. It's an inconvenience. 73% say they cannot afford to have a child. 48% say they do not want to be a single parent or have relationship problems with a husband or a partner. Less than 2% say that they became pregnant as a result of rape or incest. That's always one of the big arguments they bring up about it. You know? By the way, if my mother had believed in abortion for any reason, but for medical reasons, my mother had believed in abortion for medical reasons, I wouldn't be here today, because that was the advice. Her life was threatened, they said, with a continued pregnancy. There is a website that you can go to. It has a running clock that shows you, keeps track of the number of abortions that's going on. If you look at that, that thing just keeps clicking, click, 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 telling you the number of abortions that's going on in the United States. It's just incredible to look at how fast that thing's running. Running almost as fast as the clock on our debt. 2 Timothy 3, you can be certain that in the last days there will be some very hard times. People will love only themselves and money. They will be proud, stuck up, rude, and disobedient to their parents. They will also be ungrateful, godless, heartless, and hateful. Their words will be cruel, and they will have no self-control or pity. These people will hate everything that is good. Well, isn't that true? I mean, if they will be sneaky, reckless, and puffed up with pride instead of loving God, they will love pleasure. Even though they will make a show of being religious, that's a catch. Being religious is a kind of a catch-all thing. The religion won't be real. Don't have anything to do with such people. We have 350,000 soldiers in Saudi Arabia standing ready to invade Syria in a couple of weeks ago. There was big news among some people who thought that they discovered something that was startling happening, and it is. But here's the interesting part. These people are mostly from Saudi Arabia soldiers and equipment with other countries. Egypt's among them and a few other countries. They're involved as they pushed up against the Syrian border. Jordan's among them. The people in Saudi Arabia are Sunnis. And this is the inward conflict that goes on, of course, as the different divisions within Islam, the different groups. And so they're moving up. But they're also being aided, pushed up by who? Who is the best handshake that Saudi Arabia has? It's the United States. And the United States. But who's on the other side? We got Russia, Iran. They're on the other side. So we're going to look, and we're getting close to a war by proxy. Now, this isn't World War III. I don't see it as World War III. I think that's something I might talk about on Sunday morning. I get to be here Sunday morning. But but this could be a war of proxies with weaponry, and just to see which group wins out. Very intriguing, very interesting. Matthew 24:6-7 says, "You will soon hear about wars and threats of wars, but don't be afraid." Easy for him to say. He didn't live here now. Jesus not live. He wasn't, when he's saying this, he's not living in where we're living. He's looking from a nice sky seat. You know, these things will have to happen first, but that isn't the end. Nations and kingdoms will go to war against each other. People will starve to death, and in some places there will be earthquakes. Take your pick. What we got? You know, any one of those things, you know, we got happening. But certainly we got a war going on. Highly dangerous radioactive material in Iraq stolen. Not only did we negotiate the worst possible deal that we could work with Iraq over nuclear weapons, but now what they do have, somebody's already stolen some of it. And they're using it to make what they're afraid of. They'll use the material to make the dirty bomb, or the suitcase bomb, which is what they can transport. As simple as the language is, transport very easily any place and detonate it, and of course cause a huge toll and death toll that happens. But that's not the only place that happened. Also, there was one missing in Mexico. Now, we have a lot of visitors come from Mexico across our border carrying lots of things. And it'd be very easy for them to bring that straight from Mexico here, but it's missing. Nobody knows where it is. And it could show up in one of our major cities very easily. And of course, again, it will not take too much to cause chaos in the whole country. Zechariah 14:12. Here's what the Lord will do to those who attack Jerusalem while they are standing there. He will make the flesh rot, and their eyes fall from their sockets, and their tongues drop out. This passage, well, the reason I put this passage up, it is in graphic language of what happens to when an atomic bomb goes off. Zechariah probably didn't have a clue when you jotting this down, but that's exactly a description of what happens when that goes off. And how about this? This was a bunch on the news yesterday too. With the virus coming through, one of the things my son and his wife had been planning to go on the mission trip to South America this summer. They wanted to, and they had been talking conversation about going. He's fairly fluent in Spanish. But to set themselves up, when they had their school spring break, they was going to go on down to some place, I don't know where it was in South America they was going, some place, some beach, someplace they was going, so that they kind of get a tune up, and he could use his Spanish, and they could just kind of get accustomed. But here's the kicker: they're also trying to have a baby. And so they had to back out of all this. And so because they backed out of going to South America during the spring break, I hear they're going to Paris during the spring break. So I'm not sure really that's that much better for other reasons, but that's where they're going, last I heard. So, but here's what we say, Matthew 24:7, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. We got one of the things that also that they were talked about on one of the radio stations on the way up here. I don't know why I prepare anything ahead. I should just listen to this stuff all the way up here and then do it after I get here. But one of the things they was talking about was the resistance that's going on to antibiotics. And we got some super strains of things happening, and these antibiotics that we have today are just about ineffective. You know, it's if you get over some of this stuff, it's only by chance. It's not by medication and stuff. And it's kind of scary when you think about all that stuff, because a lot of the stuff you pick up at the hospital, you know, you might want to happen to come operate on you at home, because it's not as always just as safe at the hospital anymore. This is the one that a lot of people got hyped up. By the way, the one on the Muslim, well, that's coming up. The one on this one I'm going to talk about is in this one, prophecy fatigue. But remember last year, for those who were here last year, I talked about the blood moons. Showed you all the data, all the information, and I told you what? It was worthless. It was a book seller. It really was they had everybody so hyped up and worked up about 4 blood moons, and when it was all said and done, it was worthless. Well, they've come up with another way to sell books this year. And that's this one, and that's what's in this particular magazine. But it has to do, of course, with the book of Revelation, Revelation 12. And there is this once in 7,000 years event that's going to take place here. And it just happens on the calendar to link up with the feast day. Now let me just stop here and say, I think that the feasts are important. Knowing the feasts are important. They're God's prophetic outline. I believe that. A number of years ago, I didn't know much about it. Kathy started me on this process, been on it ever since, as she has been. There's much value in knowing all that information. There is. That's God's biblical outline of prophecy. But since that time, since we started on that journey, many others have discovered that, and now there's books and books and books and books on this. And so somebody has to write something different out of it than what, and so they keep trying to add to it. And one of the things, every time something now happens close to a feast day or something, like the 4 blood moons, then we can start hyping it. And so they have, and they started with this one. The trouble is that they're not very well schooled in their feasts that they're talking about to begin with, plus the rest of them. Anyway, if you get this one, it gives you 6 reasons why not to get overwhelmed by what they suggest there. And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun with the moon under her feet. In her head, a crown of 12 stars. And let me mention this before I do. I'm not sure. I forgot what order I had stuff in it. Maybe I better wait and see what I got. I may have put it on. But there's a new Bible translation that eliminates any reference to Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and Messiah because it insults the Muslims. Like they're going to be picking it up anyway, huh? See, the stories of the prophets. And they changed it this way. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. They got to reading, cleanse them by water in the name of Allah, His Messiah, and His Holy Spirit. Yeah. Revelation 20, this is what comes to mind. Revelation 22, 18, 19. For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book. If any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. And if a man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life and out of the holy city and from the things which are written in this book. It's a clear addition. And I want to make sure what time was it. The wristwatch over there, I can't quite see. Yeah. So, but that's okay. Now, the other thing was this is the new. This is the newest dot. I call your attention to Muslim missionaries, and essentially it tells you about what's going on in Europe with the immigration of the Muslims into the various countries. But I can tell you that Europe was pretty much lost. They don't know how to handle what they started, and they've tried closing borders, but it's too late. And they got problems. They got sections where nobody goes into anymore. That they don't dare. The police stay away from it. Everybody stays away from it and let them just take on. We're pretty much close to that in some places in this country. Detroit, for instance, is one of those places. It'll soon be taken over in such a manner too. So we got all that going on, and that's why it goes back to where I started off with the economy. When they gain control over the economic basis or cause enough chaos to cause economic trouble in Europe, you're going to see a lot of things fall. And they don't, things don't necessarily have to come here, but they have someplace else, and it'll start a domino effect around the world. We're going to see lots of things going on, and lots of struggles for power, and people. We're going to need somebody when all that happens and that chaos happens. We're going to need somebody to guide us out of it, aren't we?